to follow up from yesterday's live stream where I talked about politicians representing us. First of all, just want to apologize because I let loose a couple of vulgar words, and I don't really do that, you know. I try to keep my content clean like that, but nobody's perfect. So for that, I apologize. But a couple things I wanted to discuss. First of all, why was I even talking about this? Well, because if you boil everything down, everything revolves around, you could say it revolves around money, or you could say it revolves around, you know, the scarcity of resources. I mean, even something like slavery, it wasn't about racism. Now, racism had a part to do with it, and a long legacy afterward that we're still dealing with, because history is not, you know, it's not like a history book where it's boxed off into these little sections or compartments. It's continuous, you know. Something that happened back in history continues on today. But even something like slavery, that was about economics, you know, colonialism and imperialism and slavery. That was about money. That was about resources, you know, and control over those things. So it's all related. All those stacking channels, we talk about finances, and that's all related to politics as well. Because why are American politicians in particular not representing their people? And by the way, hello Stamos. Why are American politicians in particular not representing their constituents, the actual people who live in their districts or their state? In the case of Joe Manchin, West Virginia, because they're being basically legally bribed, because our courts have ruled that money equals speech, and that corporations are people. Now, the Supreme Court can rule that way. It doesn't mean it's true, and it doesn't mean that normal people think that way. We don't think that way. And what I wanted to follow up with today is, after I made that video, today I read an article that a coal miners union in West Virginia, so Joe Manchin's excuse is that, you know, people in West Virginia don't support the Build Back Better bill. But a coal miners union in West Virginia who has contributed to financially to Joe Manchin's campaigns has come out and made a public statement and said, we want you to reconsider your position on this. So all the public polling indicates that even a majority of Republicans support this. The unions and individuals have spoken out and said, from West Virginia, and said that they do support it. And by the way, also I want to say one thing. Yes, you have to represent your states if you're a senator, but you're also making public policy for the whole entire country. So even if there was a situation where all the other 49 states support something, but your state doesn't, you might have to say to your people in your state, hey, look, I'm sorry, but we have to do what's best for the country. But that's not even the case. People in West Virginia support this. It's one of the poorest states in the country. So, like, the idea that Joe Manchin is like this smart guy who knows about finances and wants to be fiscally responsible, that's just not the case. That's not the facts, you know? I mean, if you're so smart and you're so fiscally responsible, then how come your state is one of the poorest in the country, and you're a millionaire and you and your family are doing great, making tens of millions of dollars? I mean, he makes more money from his private interest than he does as a politician. And I think there's a comedian that I like named Bill Burr, and he was saying that we need to pay our politicians a lot more. And I agree, because otherwise they're going to get bribed. And somebody left a comment in yesterday's video about how we need to clean up the election finances. I agree with that too. We should have public funding for candidates. You know, if they make the cut, enough to run an election, then there should be public funding only, you know? Or we could have something where, you know, you every 4 years especially, or every 2 years if it's in national elections, you can contribute, you know, everybody gets $200 or something, and they give it to the candidate that they want, you know? I mean, just the incentive structure right now is just basically legal bribery, and that's really the number one problem. Another interesting idea I heard recently is that every 4 years, because whenever a president wins, even if it's by a narrow margin, they always say, oh, I won, so I have a mandate to do this, this, and this. Well, look, how about this? Because here's an interesting thing. There's a big debate about the minimum wage right now as well in the United States. And people like to try to make everything like a right or left issue. But bread and butter issues, and by bread and butter issues, I mean issues that impact every single day, you know, regular people and how they live day to day, you know, including minimum wage. That's not a left or right issue. Just look at the election in Florida, the last presidential election. Trump won the state. They elected, they have a Republican governor, but they also voted to raise the minimum wage. Why is that? It's a bread and butter issue. So not everything is divided by left and right. That's what they try to make it seem like on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, which is basically the Republican version of CNN. They try to, like I said yesterday, they're trying to divide us. But I have more in common with a working class Republican than I do with, you know, any politician, basically, you know, because they're making a whole lot of money and they're not really connected. They're not really out here living, you know, normal life. They're stuck in their DC bubble. And I know it's easy to say, like, oh yeah, all politicians, they're all corrupt. And I mean, for a big portion of them, that's true. But look, this is our system of government, you know? So we have to hold these politicians accountable. And, you know, people on CNN and you know, people in that Washington, D.C. bubble, they're so surprised about, like, how could people support Trump? And, like, how could people believe that the election was stolen and stuff like that? And, by the way, I do think there's a lot of, like, dishonest things that happen in terms of our elections in the United States. But I don't think that, like, there's some conspiracy that, like, the election was stolen from Trump. I just don't believe that. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. But how could so many people believe that? The reason why is because they don't feel like their interests are being represented. So, and Trump had a very populist message. Go back and listen to him, especially when he ran against Hillary Clinton. He was talking about ending the wars. He said he wouldn't cut Social Security. I mean, he was talking about bringing jobs back home. I mean, that's bread and butter issues right there. That hits home. That's why there's a lot of people, especially in the Midwest, who voted twice for Obama and then voted for Trump, you know? Because people want to work. They want to earn a living. They're trying to do right. But then we get these politicians in there and they don't do what they said they're going to do. And look at Joe Manchin. He's a perfect example. He's lying and saying that he, you know, the people in his state don't want this and it's, you know, fiscally irresponsible, blah, 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 blah. It's all a bunch of garbage and lies. And this is why people turn to believing into what some might call, like, conspiracy theories, or, you know, these people in Washington, D.C. and CNN and stuff, they can't get it. They can't wrap their head around it because they're not out here living like a normal person. They don't get it. They don't understand how bad people are struggling. We're paying our taxes. And by the way, you know, these rich people out here complaining about high taxes and stuff like that, they pay less in taxes as a percentage of their overall net worth than you or I do. Our taxes are way higher. Way higher. We pay way more of a percentage of our net worth because most of us are paying from our income. You know what I'm saying? So we're paying taxes, and what are we getting for it? Did we get anything for it? No. You got to go into debt to go to school. You got to go into debt if you have a medical issue. Everybody is trying to, take a piece of our pie. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's limited resources. So look, man, I don't think they get it. Like, they really live in a bubble and like a whole nother world. They don't really get like how bad people are struggling. But like what happened on January 6th earlier this year, I do not condone that. But how could we get to that point? How? Because people are hurting economically and nothing's being done about it. And rather than examining really what's going on with those people, I mean, some of them are crazy, for real. But not all of them. I mean, there are a whole bunch of like law enforcement officers and military veterans, and that doesn't automatically make them good people. But I mean, like firemen and stuff, like they were all participating in that. Why? Because they feel like their voice is not being heard. Martin Luther King Jr. said that riots are the language of the unheard. And whatever you think or feel about Martin Luther King Jr., I mean, personally, I think he's an American hero and a really, really important person in American history. Even if you don't particularly like him, there's one thing you can't deny, and he was a genius at using languages. I mean, sorry, not languages, but language. Especially when it comes to writing or giving a speech or something like that. I mean, he was an absolute genius. I learned how to write because of him, using one of the main things I studied was his letter from Birmingham jail. And, saying that riots are the language of the unheard, I think that's true, and I think that's exactly what we saw on January 6th. Those people feel like they're just getting shafted, and there was a lot of hope, especially with Trump and things like that, and I don't know, Trump was an outsider, but he's also a billionaire, you know what I mean? The tax cuts that he did were mostly for the rich, you know what I mean? And so anyway, my point for this video was to just follow up and say that Joe Manchin's excuse about fiscal responsibility and how the people in his state don't want the Build Back Better bill and stuff like that, it's not true. All right, because all the public polling indicates that's not true, and the coal miners union, who contributed to him financially, came out and told him to reconsider. So, pre-33 gold is going to explode in premium even more than it already has these past few months. It's been undervalued for far too long. I mean, I will say that the U.S., government, the federal government, and a lot of state governments even are fiscally irresponsible, and they are spending too much money, but it's not on regular people, I mean, here's another insane thing. Joe Manchin said that he thinks that the money for, I don't know exactly what it was, sorry, but it's just like basically money for to help people get by, to feed their kids and stuff, that they were going to use it on drugs. But like the statistics because when you get money from the government, financial assistance, they track how you spend it and where you spend it and stuff like that. 9 out of 10 people spend it on basic necessities, So seriously, you're going to let, and I don't even know, that doesn't mean that the 1 out of 10 spent it on drugs. You know what I'm saying? But these are all just excuses. The real reason is because the corporations who fund Joe Manchin told him to kill this bill. So, look, my point in talking about all of this, to bring it back around full circle and to wrap this up, is to say that A, he's full of crap, and B, the real struggle here is not about all these culture war issues and whatever they try to tell us on CNN and Fox News, MSNBC, all these, people. And also on YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of like partisan hackery that goes on YouTube as well. That culture war stuff does not matter. Like I said yesterday, if you're in a labor union, you're not really going to care if the person next to you says Merry Christmas, or if they are a dude who wants to be a chick or whatever, you guys are all in it together because your paycheck, your working conditions, your holidays, all that stuff is on the line. So you're going to set all that stuff aside. It's not to say that it's not important, but the real most important priority is for us to stand together as citizens. Because look, man, I live in another country and I travel a lot for work. I've been all around the world. I can tell you that people in other countries, especially countries that are rivals to the United States and who are not, democracies in the same sense that that we are. And sad to say, but I don't know if the U.S. is really a democracy because of exactly what I'm talking about right now. It's more like a kleptocracy. They're not listening to the citizens. They're representing corporate interests. All right. So, but anyway, back to my point. The US, everybody's at each other's throats. But in other countries, like in China, for example, I'm not saying that 100% of the Chinese people support their government and blah, blah, blah. But they're a lot more patriotic and there's a lot more like of a clear focus and vision in that country. And the people don't necessarily mind that their country is not, again, this is not all people, but I mean, it's anecdotal, but the Chinese people, a lot of them that I've met have said that, like, we don't really feel the need for elections because our government has to be accountable to us, because if they're not, then there are going to be problems, so they yes, in one sense, they don't have as much maybe individual liberty or freedom to do and say whatever they want. And by the way, I'm in no way am I saying that we should be like China. My point is, their people are more united than we are as Americans. And that's not good, I don't think that's good for us, because at the end of the day, it is a competition between nation states, and I'm not necessarily saying that the United States always has to be number one or the best about, every single thing forever, but we're destroying our country right now for the wrong reasons. I mean, it's being destroyed by the people who are in charge, but everyday people like us are totally, I see so many people going down the wrong path and blaming each other, we have to stop that. We have to find what we have in common, and we have to hold these people, these politicians who are supposed to represent us, we have to hold their feet to the fire, proverbially. Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, all these people. I mean, Kirsten Sinema, people are like, oh, how can she ignore? She is like ignored all her constituents. She doesn't meet with them, blah, 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 blah. Because she doesn't care. I don't even think she cares about re-election. There's a revolving door in Washington, D.C., and I think she's probably knows that she's not going to get reelected. She doesn't care because she campaigned on trying to lower prescription drug prices, and that was her main objection against this Build Back Better plan. The thing that she campaigned on and took individual people's money and people supported her, they gave their time and everything. The thing she campaigned on, she totally flipped. And why? Because she's received over $1 million from the pharmaceutical industry, including foreign pharmaceutical companies. So she's representing like pharmaceutical companies in Europe against her own people in her own state and her own country. And she doesn't care. I mean, people are like protesting her on the street and everything, following her around to the bathroom and to weddings and everything, and just asking her questions. Why are you doing this? We want you to support this. And she's ignoring them. Why? Because she doesn't care about getting reelected. She's all about the money. She already got her millions from the pharmaceutical industry, and when she gets voted out of office, she'll go to work as a lobbyist. We got to end the revolving door. We got to get money out of politics. We got to stop getting at each other's throats. Follow the money. Hold your politicians accountable. That's what we got to do. you know. And the reason, like I said, the reason why I'm talking about this political stuff, and I'm going to keep talking about it, is because it is related to finances, you know. And that's obviously something that we're interested in as stackers. But this whole climate and situation has got to change. We have to stop attacking each other over our identities, and you have to say this or you can't say that or whatever. Enough with the victim complex, you know, and the victim narratives, and enough with the blaming, and enough with the destructive mentality, you know, and like just, you know, willful ignorance and things like this. You have to follow the money, and you have to think about what it is you want. What do you want for the country? What do you want to build? What do you want to do? You know, and we gotta focus on what we agree on. And it doesn't mean that like we have to just hold hands and forget about our disagreements. We don't. But that those things should not stop us from making progress, you know, and radical ideas, small ideas, whatever it is. We need to start doing certain things and stop doing other things. And I'm just a voice in the void sharing my thoughts on it, you know, because I'm tired of seeing it. And I already lost a couple subscribers after making these political type videos, but I don't care. I'm going to keep talking about it, you know. Because I'm not blaming anyone, I'm not attacking anyone, and I promise I'll try to keep it more calm, rational, and clean. And I think it's an important discussion. You know, a lot of people have suddenly, you know, cared about politics all of a sudden over the past 4, 8, maybe 12 years. It's been a reality for me since I was a teenager, and there's reasons for that. Maybe I'll get into that another time. But like I said, we have to start doing certain things, stop doing certain things, and holding these people accountable. So anyway, guys, appreciate you guys, you know, commenting and listening in and talking with me about this stuff. And I hope everybody's doing good. Christmas is right around the corner, so I'm not sure if I would make another video before then, but I do want to say Merry Christmas to everybody, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. I wish you guys nothing but the best. Much love and respect.